So, okay, in today's session, we will have...
Victor, I think you have started a live meeting on YouTube.
Yeah. I did it on purpose. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, in today's session, we're going to understand the cybersecurity protection methods, which is basically a small recap of what we discussed in the last week's session, and we'll also introduce some other useful methods. So from our indicative content, we're going to analyze the purpose of implementing cybersecurity measures across organizations, evaluate this method used to protect the systems, analyze how to deploy security protection methods, analyze how to configure system settings to increase security, and then we conclude with analyzing the consideration to make when recommending cybersecurity protection methods. So as we spoke on the last session, we looked into how organization has to have to spread the awareness of cybersecurity threats, and we also conclude with some useful website or some useful blog to look into for us to understand how to stay protect. So now we're going to look into the purpose of implementing cybersecurity measures across organizations. So there are several aspects which have to be taken into consideration, and some of them are business protection against cyber attacks and data breaches, protection from data and networks, for data networks, prevention of unauthorized user access, improved recovery time after a breach, protection for end user and endpoint devices, and regulatory compliance and business continuity. So these are several purposes, several targets that companies always have to ensure that they've been protected from cyber threats. As we can see, if we look into them in detail, we can see what are the best practice. So best practice that could be considered could be by conducting cybersecurity training and awareness, which we already mentioned in the previous session, and we already understand how important is for the company to have well-trained and aware staff. And you also shared with us your past experience. Also, we need to check into perform risk assessment, where organization should always perform a risk assessment, which will allow them to identify and understand the valuable assets within the organization, and how important it is to keep them safe. And also we're going to look into ensure that vulnerability management as software patch management, where we know that all the assets, all the software of the company has to be really protected and not have any type of vulnerability or access point where hackers can attack and compromise the data. Also, we have to look into the use of principle of at least privilege, where we can see by definition that this is mainly used to detect the both software and personnel should be allotted at least amount the permission necessary to perform the duties. And also we have to look into ensure that all the password secured and stored in a safe location within the organization and following the policies that have been given by the company regarding password management. Also, we have to look into implement a robust business continuity and inside response plan. So with this plan, organization can effectively respond to cyber attacks in order for them to stay protected from these cyber crimes. And also they have to look into perform periodic security reviews where these reviews could be annually or maybe on during regular period, and they have to report and check into this data and see how they can improve and protect from any type of attack. And conclusively, you have to look into back up the data. So all your data, in case there are some attacks and the data might be lost, it's always important to have like a backup system where all the data can be safely stored in them. And another best practice is the use of encryption for data, where we all know that encryption is a strong combination where we know that the only way to decrypt the information is just can happen just by owning the key, and just the people that are authorized can own the keys and decrypt their message. So encryption is one of the safest cybersecurity best practice. And also there is design software and network with security in mind. So we have to understand that when creating application or writing software, it's always there has to be design with them with the security in place. Now we're going to evaluate the methods used to protect systems, where we already mentioned all of them in the previous section, but we can quickly go through them each in a very short with a very short definition. Where with firewall, we already know is simply network protection for the devices, which monitors income and outgoing network traffic. So firewall protection can be disabled, but is not recommended because it will make our computer very vulnerable, and any type of exploitation can happen. Endpoint protection software, we also mentioned them. We had a couple of examples of companies which are advertising these softwares, and we already looked into what are the benefits of using them. Then we also looked into categorizing them, where we have anti-malware, web browser security, and mobile device management softwares. We looked into also mobile threat defense softwares, endpoint detection and response. We also looked into data loss prevention and embedded system security. We also spoke about how two-factor authenticator works by simply retrieving, by simply adding an extra functionality where you have to insert a code in order for us to authenticate our identity and use the software. We also spoke about antivirus and malware protection and how antivirus can block malicious. How can you can detect and block malicious website containing viruses. And we also spoke about VPN, which is really important on how it keeps our network private. And we also spoke about company policies and how these guidelines are important and they have to be followed. So now in this learning outcome, we're going to analyze how to deploy security protections methods. So we now have to look into what is patch management. So by definition, patch management is the process of distributing any applying updates and software. So for instance, these patches are often necessary to correct errors, and always refer to the vulnerability or bugs that we can find within any type of software. So common areas that we will need patches include operating systems, application, or for instance, even embedded systems. Also, another system to deploy is system handling, whereby having this system handling is simply the collection of tools, techniques, and best practice to reduce vulnerabilities in application, system, or infrastructure, or even wireframe. So as we can see, the main goal of this is to reduce the security risks, which we already looked into risk management, risk assessment, and you also eliminate potential attacks from vectors. There are several types of this system handling, which are application handling, operating system handling, server handling, data handling, and network handling. So depending on what information technology we're working on, we will have our respective handling software. Also, another way to deploy is looking into principle of least privilege, where by definition, we can see that I did not provide users or rules more privilege than are necessary. So what we can see that the principle of this privilege is that users are given only those privileges that are actually required to effectively perform the job. So it's basically consists on restricting users on just for the respective software that they might need for the job. So it's just simply adding restrictions to the users. Also, there is focus on security monitoring, where, as we mentioned in the previous lecture, where we explained what are the benefits of monitoring. We also see we saw the advantages, and as we can see, configuring security settings to generate alerts is critical, and it always can be a delicate balancing act where we have to get the configuration correct in order for us to have these alerts. And this typically requires ongoing assessment and configuration updates. So we know that monitoring is really important within organizations to check on performance and productivity of the users and employees. Another way is by using cloud-based security products, where we can see that there are different products. As for instance, we have SaaS-based security, which is offering two benefits. These two benefits they do not require large capital investment to pay open front license fees, and also they do not necessitate IT staff to install and configure the product. Also, now we're going to analyze how to configure this system security to increase the security. So there are several configurations, such as secure server connectivity, server user management, server password security, and other practice for server configurations. So if we have to look in detail into one of them, we can see the benefit of using secure server connectivity, where it establish and use a secure connection. When connecting to a remote server, it is essential to establish this secure channel by using SSH, which is a secure shell protocol. We can establish and protect our connection. Also, there is a secure file transfer protocol, which is secure FTP, which allows us to upload our files on a remote server with by encrypting our files. So FTPS use both a command channel and the data channel, and the user can also encrypt both of them. So as we all know, FTP protocol is a really safe way to upload our files on a remote server, but it's really important to ensure that our file has to be securely protected. Also, for secure server connectivity, we have to use SSH keys authentication. So we already looked into two-factor authenticator, but there are also different ways to use authenticator. So SSH is another one, where instead of a password, we can authenticate an SSH server using a pair of HSS keys, and it's a better alternative to traditional logins. So what we can see here is that the key pair consists of public and private key, where the public one has several copies, and one of which remains on the server, while the other one shares with the user. While for private key is not shared with anyone and must be kept secure when establishing a connection. Also, another way is using private network and VPN, where we already explained the benefit of having private network, which is really good and useful for our IP address. And this allows multiple servers under the same account to exchange information and data without exposure to a public space. Other benefits of server user management is monitor login attempts, where this benefit is using intrusion prevention software to monitor login attempts is one of the best way to protect our server from various type of attacks. Also, we have to look into manage users, where every user has a root user who can execute any command. And for us to ensure that outsiders do not get access to this root, it is really important to know how to limit the access of our users. And this can be done by our IT administrator. Other benefits are establish password requirements and use passphrase for server passwords. So there are many type of ways for us to have a server password security. So we've mentioned a couple of them. Now we're going to look into the final one, where is other practice for server configuration, where we need to understand what is the purpose of this practice configuration, which allows us to update and upgrade server regulatories, use in intrusion detection systems, remove and turn off all the necessary service, hide server information. Also is useful for file auditing and service auditing. So if we look into one of them, we can see that service auditing explores what services are running on the server, the protocols, and which ports are they communicating through. So this is a really useful server configuration, which allows to track various activity within the server. Also, there is creation of multi-server environment. So with creation of multi-server environment, isolation is one of the best type of server protection which we can have. So by having this isolation, execution environments in a data center allows to so-called separation of duties, SOD, and setting server configuration according to the function of the server fulfills. Now we're going to look into our final learning outcome, where we're going to analyze the consideration to make when recommending cybersecurity protection methods. So here are some figures of cost considerations. These figures are related to the cost of cybercrime by consequences of attacks, where these companies have had massive loss of money due to these attacks. And we already mentioned this in the previous session, where we already spoke about GDPR. As protection improves, few attacks will breach defense, and the cost of cybercrime reduces. So, as we all know, these attacks are growing day by day, but companies and cybersecurity specialists are coping with these attacks, and this is really important because all the numbers of cybercrime are significantly reducing. Also, we have to look into unlocking cybersecurity values. By unlocking, we're looking into prioritize protecting people-based attacks, where we all know that the increase of phishing, ransomware, and malicious attacks means that greater emphasis need to be on security. So training and education are essential to reinforce safe behavior, both for people within the organization and across the entire business ecosystem, where we already talk about how important it is for each single person to know how they are, to be aware of how to protect themselves from cyber attacks. Now we need to look into supplier due diligence, where a vendor cybersecurity due diligence questionnaire is written assessment given to a vendor to gain a better understanding of the cybersecurity environment. So by due diligence, we always know that we need to provide guidelines and reports to the customer in order for them to know how to protect and how to use effectively the guide. So is a responsibility of the vendor to supply with the appropriate guidelines and information to the customer. With in these guidelines should contain information security management, where the guide should have description of policies and procedures of an organization that has to be in place to prevent from unauthorized access. Always has to contain business continuity and disaster recovery, where it is essential that the vendor has a plan in place that allows them to maintain the core business function after an attack has been carried out. So this means that the structure of their company is not going to completely fall apart once an attack has been executed, but it can but he can cope and able to fix the problem by following the given plan. So as you can see, a disaster recovery plan outlines the steps that have been given to the vendor in order for the company to restore the compromised system. Also, there is a network management, where by network management is simply concerned with the solution of vendors employee in order to detect and manage threats. And then conclusively, there's regulatory compliance, which is simply monitors in a very important aspect of cyber due diligence, due to the organization tend to responsible when vendors violate the regulatory code. So this is everything for today. For the next session, we will be looking into covering other learning outcomes, and we will soon look into our assignment. So in the next session, we're going to understand cybersecurity testing, where our learning outcomes are going to be vulnerability testing, scheduling simulated attacks, configure and test application, and network security, cybersecurity rating. And then we'll have two more classes where we'll understand how to manage a cyber attack and be able to manage cybersecurity in the organization. So this is everything for today. Is there any question for me?
No question, Victor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.